Hello and welcome to a special edition of the In the Money Players podcast. This is our show covering the mandatory payout for closing day at Del Mar this Sunday. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatal. As you can see, back with you in the Brooklyn bunker. Once again, I don't know where my nicer hats are. I just went for the really cool Breeders' Cup hat today, but I feel like I make up for it with the cool Mr. T t-shirt. And joining us from his base in and around Del Mar Racetrack, a man never short on sartorial splendor. You read his work, the fantastic work he's done all meet long with the Frankly Speaking column on our In the Money Plus side. Always a pleasure to reunite with Frank Scatoni. What's going on, Frank?
Pete, your shirt reminded me that after this is over, I got to drink my milk and take my vitamins. So, but I wish I got to position my angle a little bit better because I'm rocking the Casbah t-shirt today, but nobody can see it because I'm sunk a little too low. So maybe for the Del Mar fall, I can get a little bit of a higher setup so people can actually see my really cool t-shirts.
I think it's a good idea, and there's a connection between our t-shirts. I once saw an obscure band, really a guy called the Mr. T Experience
I've heard
at
that.
Casbah.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Maybe I think I've been to the Casbah twice. I don't remember the other show, but I do remember I enjoyed the Mr. T Experience there. So Mr. T and the Casbah are united. Loved in your in one of your recent columns getting in the great phrase for a horse that had a lot going on behind the saddle, has an ass like a Westchester bus.
Remember that?
Oh, genius. Yes. I think it was something that the Clancy's dad used to say.
Yeah.
I don't know which one of them told us, but that was fabulous.
Yeah. I wanted to say Sean because Sean was the one who talks all the time, but I believe it was actually Joe who said that. You and I were both cracking up.
Oh, it was great. It was great.
I miss those days. I miss those boys.
Yeah, they're doing great. They had a good meet up there, and they've really got it down to a science. And the Saratoga special graduates, I mean, it's just so funny to see how many of us there are now. We give the Darley Flying Start kids a run for their money.
Yeah, well, I was going to say it was almost like it's like a finishing school for people who want to move on in the industry because you learn so much working on that publication, and we were there from the inception, like the very first couple of seasons, and the work that Joe and Sean have done over the last, I don't know, what do you think it is? 15 years? It's been a long time.
No, the first year was 2001.
2001, right. So the work that they've been doing.
We got home from that summer, and it was 9/11.
Oh.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. That's right, because I actually after I moved out here, I spent the whole summer back east in Saratoga, and I remember I came back after the races, and then, like a week later, it was 9/11. That's ugh. But the work that they've been doing for as long as they've been doing, it has been remarkable. Two really great writers, great editors, so good for the sport. And if not for the Clancy's, who knows, where we might be today.
We might have real jobs. I don't know. Is that good? Some days I curse them for this, Frank. Other days I feel very appreciative, and we're trying here at the special We're trying here at the network too to keep that going and find other young people and set them on their way. For those that don't know, I mean, there's so many. I can't name them all, but two that leap to mind: Travis Stone getting his start there. Another John Panagot. I'll throw him in. Gabby Gaudet. I mean, there's a whole lot of us. There's a whole lot of us.
It's amazing. It's like a who's who.
It's a who's who. So I don't know how we make the grade, but somehow we.
Well, they were desperate. It was the first year they had nobody.
now there's a list as long as your arm of people who want to work.
I know. Now we would be like, oh, sorry, try again next year.
Yeah, there's not enough racing experience. Get lost. Let's talk about this mandatory payout pick 6. First of all, you've been very good with your general feel about these sequences when we've talked about them in the past. Is this a sequence you like, or one going in you feel like is a little tricky?
I thought this was super duper tough. It was funny as I was going through the card. I came up with some crazy horses, and I was thinking, like, my goodness, if this was just a normal day, and if I am right about my crazy horses, I might be the single ticket. That won't be the case. That won't be the case on a mandatory day. where so many people are playing, where the computer guys really get involved. But yeah, I got a couple of 20-1 shots we're going to talk about. The only thing is, and we'll get to this race in a little bit, obviously if Prince of Monaco wins, that'll deflate the payoff because everybody will be using that horse. But what if he doesn't win? And some of these bombs come in. What the heck is this thing going to pay? I thought it was a very challenging sequence. I didn't have a super good feel for a lot of these races. As I usually do, however, I do like to, step out and plant some flags to try and, build a roadmap to get to that last race. But tough sequence. It's a great way to end what has been a very competitive Del Mar meet.
Yeah, there's no other way to do it, really. I mean, and I don't mind the free square being in this sequence. I think it's sometimes having, 6 open races in a pick 6, that turns it into a benefit for the computer players in a way where, if you can reduce it to a pick 5, I think in a way it gives us a little bit more of a chance. For me, this was a sequence where rather than do a typical ABC construction, I felt like the flag planting method of I'm going to try to construct some tickets where 2 of 3 strong opinions have to win kind of thing. And then maybe get a little spready, but let's talk it through. Starting off with race number 6, this Calbred allowance going 6.5 on the dirt. I don't usually start, but with the first race, but I will just say one of those horses I thought might make sense to get stuck into on a whole lot of tickets is the number 4, Super Chief. I think this horse is going to get an absolutely perfect trip, bound to run better. Second start over the surface, second start of the meet. There was just a lot to like, and I thought this one might have a little bit in hand on the dirt compared to some of today's rivals. I also thought that I'm going to go with Babe for the 9. This horse looks very exposed, at the 1 for 15 with 7 seconds and 5/3, but there hasn't been a lot of that on dirt, very, very little. And in fact, 2 of the dirt races are 2 of the best races. So viewed through the lens of dirt, maybe this Babe can get involved. I had that one as a B, the 9, the 4 as sort of an A press in this situation. What do you think of this first race?
Yeah, I actually thought it was super tough. But I see this race being run one of 2 ways. You have a horse like number 4, Super Chief, and you have a couple of others who like to be forwardly placed. And that's I got to find my note here. Number 2, Let's Acclimate, and number 6, Tapatio Leo. I can see those 3 being forwardly placed and running 1, 2, 3 all the way around the track. That's one way this race could unfold. The other way is that, they get a little too eager and they try to outdo each other and they soften each other up for someone to come flying late. And that's the way I'm going to play that on my A line. I will use the 3 that I just mentioned on my B line because I think they're very, very logical. But I want to try and come up with something crazy here if the race does fall apart. I mean, how about number 5, Gypsy Tears at 20-1? What's wrong with this horse? First off, Val Brinkerhoff is having an excellent meet. I know it says he only has 2 winners and 26 starts, but he has a lot of seconds and thirds. All of his horses are firing, and they are all running well at good prices. I know the horse might look a little slow on paper, but I thought his first 2 races were very, very good. And the last race at a mile on turf, that's usually just a conditioning race and looking to cut back. A little sneaky form darkener. That's worked well for me this meet. We had a Paula Capestro horse who did the same thing and in a 6-horse field and ended up, going off at 8-1 and winning that race. It's an old school move that I love, and it still works really, really well today. In my opinion, there are no world beaters in here, so I don't think this horse is that far off all of the other ones I mentioned. So that horse will be an A for me. And then to the similar point about a horse looking for a horse who's going to track on the outside part of the track and maybe just grind away if the track is playing the way it has played mostly this meet. That tracking trip on the outside in sprint races has been very, very good. Not every day, but most of the days. So I'll keep an eye on that early in the day and see how the track is playing. But I thought number 7, Win Ribbon, was pretty obvious. Beat open $20,000 claimers 2 back here at Del Mar. And then last time at this level, he had to break from the rail. Never really a good thing to do in sprint races at Del Mar, contrary to popular belief. Yet this horse still ran a very, very good third. I thought he figured today. So 2 A's, 3 B's. I could probably talk about 3 or 4 more and still not feel confident about getting out of this race, because if it's not Super Chief, then it's 4, 5, 6 of these have a huge shot.
Yeah, I hate spreading in the first leg, but I mean, you're making good points. I may just sort of hope that I'm right with one of mine and go on with life, though I have to throw in or at least bet to win Gypsy Tears on your say so. I mean, you mentioned, I think I ignored largely because of the figures, but when do slower horses beat faster horses? When they have a pace advantage. There is this scenario where the 4 hooks up with those other 2 and it melts down, and then this horse has an absolute chance. Definitely one that'll be suited by the cutback. I'm hoping Super Chief just settles off of those other 2, stalks and pounces, but with the blinkers on, could end up being a scrum up there. So I definitely
that's another reason why I was thinking, maybe the second way I described the race unfolding might be the way it will be run with that blinkers on, and with the jock, who likes to go. So very interesting in my opinion.
First of our 2 stakes races we'll talk about is race 7, the Del Mar Juvenile Turf Grade 3 action with a field of 9 going postward. And as often as I talk about this angle, we'll bring it up again. Really love Leopardstown as a track that very often provides good pointers to horses who are going to do well in the USA. C. Singer broke his maiden over there. I think there's a chance he might just have a class edge and very well suited to today's proceedings. I couldn't get away from the horse that I would imagine is going to be the favorite. That's number 3, Voltage. Extremely impressive second time out, winning by many open links. We don't have a line on this form yet, coming back in just 17 days. Not something Mandela is associated with, but when really good trainers do unusual things, I often think it's a positive. So I was going to try to mess around 5-3. I did not have use for the morning line favorite in here, or not the morning line favorite, but a horse that's short on the morning line endlessly. 1 on debut in a race you could time with a sundial. 5 have come back from that race to not win. So I was going to try to be bold and take that one on. That was maybe my main opinion in this 7th race. Am I underrating endlessly? Do you like either of mine? How do you see this?
Yeah, I think we're mostly the same, but just a little bit different. I agree with you with the Leopardstown form, and in particular, I would love to this is just anecdotal evidence. I would actually love to do a proper study at some point, but it seems that Irish bred horses just do so well here at Del Mar. Maybe it's, maybe that's also Great British bred too, you know what I mean? But for some reason, every time I see a young turf horse win, it's typically an Irish bred. So I agree with you. That horse must be on all the tickets. It's funny, trained by Michael McCarthy. He's got 3 of them in here, including Endlessly, who you talked about. I actually really do like Endlessly. I know that speed figure is glacial. It is so slow, but I just like the way this horse won. And, the horse won very easily and very comfortably. And maybe he didn't have to run as fast, I thought he had a whiff of class about him. Michael McCarthy debuted this horse going long on turf. He got Hernandez to ride. So clearly they thought something of the horse. The horse ends up winning at first asking, doing things that, 2-year-olds don't usually do in their first starts, long on turf. Comes back here. But more importantly, I just thought the come home time in that race was pretty good for a 2-year-old. So I'm definitely using that horse as an A. I'm using the other McCarthy, C. Singer, as an A, who you mentioned. And then my Bs were going to be the 3rd McCarthy, and then number 3, Voltage. The issue I had with Voltage was exactly what you mentioned, coming back pretty quick for a young turf horse. And also, I think there's going to be some speed in here with a couple of stretch out sprinters. And the way this horse won last time, kind of stalked the pace and then pounced. Stalking a faster pace today and pouncing might not be the winning trip. It's often very hard to do that stalk and pounce move on the turf here at Del Mar. Typically, the winners like to be covered up, and then they make their explosion as they turn for home. You want your horse on the inside if possible. So I'm not knocking this horse too much. I will use the horse as a B, but I was impressed. I was really impressed by Endlessly, despite the slow speed fig. And then if I'm using 2 of the McCarthys, I have to use the 3rd. I don't know much about the turf breeding on this horse, but if you look at the July 9th race at Los Al, I'm sure that was just a prep race. And, he ran with a horse named Prince of Monaco, who we're going to talk about later on in the Futurity. So already that form is franked. I know it was only a 4-horse field, but if that was just a leg stretcher for this, McCarthy, Pratt's in town to ride Prince of Monaco. McCarthy gets Pratt to ride in this turf race, and when Pratt comes out here, he schools these boys. So I thought that was just one to use underneath. You can't really make a super case for the horse. Will the horse stretch out? Will the horse turf? That kind of thing. But that's how I saw the race, Pete. But I am more bullish on Endlessly than you are.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. I mean, I take your points for sure. I think that I would have been more forgiving of the figure had the form looked a little bit better. But it's not like the horse can't win. I was just thinking might catch a little too much money. You mentioned about Lord Bullington. So Lord Nelson, and I wouldn't think of him as a turf sire at all, being by Pulpit by AP Indy, but the numbers aren't bad. 12% turf routes. That's average. And he's certainly in hands that he knows what he's doing. And then on the dam was definitely one of these. Was it a Live Oak? No, it wasn't a Live Oak horse, but a solid. Oh, the name is Silver Oak. That's why I thought that was
Silver Oak. Yeah.
Very good turf and synth performer. So why not? I don't have any problem at all throwing something like that in. Let's move on to race number 8 as we conclude the back half of this, or the third race of the first half of the Pick 6. It's an allowance race. We're on the dirt. We've got 9 going to post. Frank, we'll keep it with you.
Yeah, this is one of those races where I felt like I wanted to separate a little bit. I know number 5 Mastering will probably be on a lot of people's tickets, and I will use that horse as a B, but it's tricky. I mean, well, first of all, Steve Knapp is terrific off the claim. He does a really, really good job when he claims a horse, but we all know it's tough to claim off Baffert and move a horse up. Yep. But he doesn't really have to move this horse up too much because it's running back, for the 40K tag. He claimed the horse for 40K. And those last 3 races that this horse ran, last 4 races, are certainly really good enough to get the job done. The horse has tactical speed, should get a good trip. I'm not going to be a hero and not use the horse as a B contender, but I like someone else for my A line. And I was going to just use number 4, Eastside Cool. I don't love that Mulhall claimed this horse back east for 62.5 at Churchill in June, and now he shows up here for 40, less than the tag. Don't usually like that, but I trust Kristen Mulhall to run the horse where she thinks he belongs, and I know that once she got the horse in her barn, she took really good care of him because she's a terrific horsewoman. So I'm thinking this could just be a case where the owners just want to get a win, run the horse in a little softer spot than he's accustomed to from those East Coast races, which are really, really good. I think that East Coast form is very solid. I like that she's adding blinkers. I think the horse, I think that equipment change will help the horse. And, like I said, Mastering, if Mastering wins, great, but he's going to be on everyone's ticket. He's going to be an underlay in the Pick 6 sequence. So I thought I would just go a little different here. Use number 4, Eastside Cool as my A, and then use 5 Mastering as a B, and then the other logical one, number 2, Devil Be Me, as a B as well. This horse never runs a bad race, but he's a Calbred facing open allowance foes, so it's a little bit tougher competition than he has been facing. But like I said, never runs a bad race, and should be there at the end. We'll see who gets the job done.
Maybe a pace advantage for Devil Be Me. That's what I was thinking. Time Form has it that way with the 7 out there pressing, but that's a horse cutting back from the turf. I think there's a world in which the 2 just gets loose,
Could be done,
which I would really, really like. So I was going to take on Mastering. I hate the claim off Baffert. I mean, the horse is just so mega obvious in a sequence that personally, I'm playing as if, and we'll get there, but I'm playing as if it's a Pick 5. I don't know. And Steve Knapp, you're right. His numbers off the claim are good, but he's not been going well. And I don't know. The claim off Baffert, it's just not something I can trust. I'm going to try to get some equity here. I also like Eastside Cool. You made the case extremely well. Maybe this is a case where they figure between what they get for the ship and win and the emotional value of winning a race at Del Mar. people make a mistake sometimes, I think, looking at every owner and trainer decision through the lens of ROI. You don't own horses for ROI. If you're trying to do this to make money on the racetrack, you're in the wrong business. So, I think sometimes obviously there's some ridiculous examples of still there. I'm not saying there aren't still suspicious claims, negative drops, et cetera. But this one doesn't seem that bad to me when you put it all in the hopper. 2-4, and I'm going to see if I can get out alive in this 8th race on Sunday.
It's like, Pete, it's like the old adage, how do you make $1 million in horse racing? Start with 20.
Yeah, start with 20. Exactly. That is exactly right. Race number 9, an allowance race going 5 furlongs on the turf, and big full field here. I'm going to throw up my hands and let you talk first.
Oh, this race is super, super tough in my opinion. If you're just looking at, the last speed figures, number 6 Bolden stands out like a sore thumb. But, two things. After he put up that huge 103 buyer, he needed a lot of time. He's been on the bench since June 17th, 2022. He's also a Calbred facing open foes for the first time. So there are some questions surrounding a horse that, will be on everybody's ticket. Now, again, we always talk about trainer intent and good trainers and whatnot. You can kind of make some excuses for a negative form thing. Like I said, this is a very long way off, but there's one guy who knows how to bring them back, ready to breathe fire and run. It's D'Amato. So I won't hold that too much against this horse, but he's going to be forwardly placed. There's a big full field, like you said. I think there's going to be a super fast pace in here. So I'm trying to find someone who I think can finish, and I got a couple of fuzzies in here. Number 4, Barsabas, 20-1. I told you I liked a couple of 21s. This horse hinted at ability for 2 years, but he never really put it together. But if you just look at his last 2 races, both at 5 furlongs over this course, you can see that he really likes this distance, and he can finish up and run well against this caliber of competition. So last time he just missed against a few of these. He was 51-1, totally outran his odds. I ran on late in a race that had what I believe was a slower pace than what we're going to see today. So I think that this horse can move forward with that much faster pace scenario that I'm envisioning. And the biggest thing is that Hector Berrios, who had a terrific meet and rides this turf course better than anybody, he takes over for an apprentice. So I know that Berrios will give this horse every chance to win at a huge number. And like I said, if there is that super fast pace, at least I know that Barsabas can come running on late. And same thing with number 9, My Summer Dream. Mullins claimed this guy out of a very good 3rd place finish against $32,000 foes. I know this is a pretty big step up into allowance company, but this horse has some pretty good races on his form. And if you look at what he did up north, he was a stakes contender. He was running in stakes races, so he has some back class to him. I can see him running a really, really good one today with the right kind of setup. Mullins used to be a trainer who claimed a lot, doesn't claim as much anymore. So when he does, I absolutely take notice. And I always love when a good trainer claims and shows confidence and moves a horse up in class. So I thought number 9 had a very sneaky look to him as well. Those will be my A's to be super sneaky in here. I will use that D'Amato horse as a B, and I will also use another obvious one, number Mr. Iceman, as a B. That horse just missed at this level last time. Really nothing wrong with that horse, but likes to be forwardly placed in a race that should have a lot of heat early. So we'll see. This race could collapse and it could be bombs away.
I hear your case on that. I think just for the practicality of how I'm going to play it, this is extremely risky, but that's you gotta do that sometimes if you're going to be able to afford these tickets. I might have Bolden be the lone A, despite the fears, just because I'm just too much of a figure monkey, I suppose, and trust D'Amato enough that I think this horse could just prove to be the best speed, and especially in these sharp 5s. You see that a lot. I'll back up with Mr. Iceman, and it's the kind of thing where, again, it's all going to come down to construction. I'll have a number of tickets where it's just the 6, And then on other tickets, I'm going to have the 6 and the 7. And then on some other tickets, I'm definitely going to throw in your 4 and 9 based on those say-sos. Because I think if either of those wins, it's going to be bombs away time. There's a very good, as long as the vibes are positive around Bolden, this horse is going to be bet off the board. I think in the win pool, maybe you can preserve a little bit of value in a bet like the pick 6. We'll see. I may be dreaming on that, but just for practicality purposes, I think that's how I'm going to run it. Let's go to race number 10, the Del Mar Futurity. I have a horse-by-horse analysis of this over on attheraces.com. I wanted to beat Prince of Monaco. I really did. And just the more I looked, the less that seemed like a sound strategy. I guess my case against at first was, here's a horse that's won wire-to-wire twice, and there's that's not exactly true. He stalked the second at the timeout. But I think this horse that from the rail with his speed is going to have to be in a bit of a scrum early. And there's, 4 horses who are potentially faster early. But it's Pratt. I think he can probably just flop outside, stalk the speed, come calling on the turn and lights out. Based on the ability this one's shown, I just didn't come up with enough clever things. I mean, I did like Raging Torrent a bunch, and I might try to have one back up there or play some 1-4 in the exacta, but I don't know. Can you give me a case against Prince of Monaco here?
I mean, again, like you said, I agreed. I really wanted to try to beat him because I thought he had the absolute perfect setup last time when he beat his stablemate Muth, who was the big favorite in that race. He was Prince of Monaco was drawn outside. It was only a 5-horse field. He just kind of tracked while Muth and somebody else were up front setting the type of pace that would favor a horse with that tracking style from the outside. It was also a super closer friendly track that day. So while I do think Prince of Monaco ran very impressively, I'm going to take that speed figure with a little bit of a grain of salt. I think he was completely flattered by the track profile. But it's hard to knock. I mean, the horse won the debut by 8 lengths, then came back and won the prep for this by 4 1/4, beating a well-fancied stablemate. So it's hard. Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to use him. I think you absolutely have to use him. But I don't know. I just wanted to talk for a second about, just because you always have to pay attention to this. What about the other Baffert? I mean, why is he running number 3 Miramati in here? There's nothing to recommend this horse on paper if you have 2 eyes and if you've seen his races. He's been overhyped and he's underdelivered. He's still a maiden. He's been a beaten favorite 3 times in a row. And last race, he had the lead and looked like the winner at the 16th pole, and then he just gave it up. He propped. He drifted in. He drifted out. He was erratic. It was just it was very, very strange. It was not a very good performance, and yet here we are a couple of weeks later, and Baffert's running this horse in a grade 1. Hernandez shows back up to ride. I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to be a little too clever by a half here, but I like the old school 1 mile to 7 furlong cutback here. This horse clearly had some kind of ability. People have liked this horse, have bet this horse off the board 3 times, and he's not delivered. I don't know why. Like I said, why is he running in a grade 1 when it looks like the stablemate is the nuts?
It's
why
strange.
Run 2 when 1 will do?
Or in this case, 3, because they're all tied to Rothschild too.
Right.
They're all stablemates. Yachtine perhaps being thrown a bone for his help on the Kentucky Derby Trail the last few years. So it is. I mean, that is a little odd. I want to love Miramati. It's my favorite name in training outside of Looms Boldly. He's a horse that looks like he is ideally suited for a cutback. I just worry he's a morning glory. I just can't. I can't do it. I can't do it. Basically, who else do you want to have on your tickets in here?
That's it. I mean, I looked at Raging Torrent long and hard, but he's got a lot of lengths to make up on Prince of Monaco. I wanted to look at Rothschild. I thought that last race was super, super sharp, but the horse did it on the lead with nary a straw in his path. He's going to face some heat. That horse outside of him has some speed. So we'll have to see if Rothschild can either outgun the 6 or suck back and rate a little bit. I just don't think Rothschild had a favorable setup with that, with that 6 horse to the outside, who ran really fast early last time. So I don't know. I was gonna, like I said, I was just gonna be too clever by a half and use both the Bafferts. And there are worse things to do in a 2-year-old stakes race at Del Mar than use Baffert. So
yeah, I hear you. I'd almost on principle, if I had your view, I'd almost on principle want to throw in Rothschild as the other, the other uncoupled stable. It's just one of those things where you think down, you're alive, you've had some prices, and you look down before the race. How am I going to get beat? Oh, it's the other Baffert owner's horse.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm going to try to get out of here not stone cold. I will have a little bit of backup, just the littlest bit of backup on Raging Torrent. Sometimes in races like this, what I'll do is say, okay, I see this favorite. I don't think the favorite can lose. If the favorite wasn't in the race, who would I like? And at least have a little backup on that one. That horse for me would clearly be Raging Torrent. So I'm going to give that one. I'm going to give that one a little bit of a lean. I mean, this. I just feel like he'd look really good essentially without the big one in here. So that's how we'll try to get, each of us will respectively try to get through the Del Mar Futurity, which brings us to an interesting nightcap. Maiden special weight going a mile on the turf when it comes to this mandatory payout for Del Mar on closing day. Frank, how are we going to get paid?
Yeah, this is another really, really tough race. Another tough turf race. We've seen a lot of these competitive turf races all summer long for Del Mar. So this is a fitting way to end the sequence. I thought there would be a pretty decent early pace in here with some stretch out sprinters, including the morning line favorite who's stretching out. I mean, call me crazy, and I guarantee you I'll be kicking myself and cursing myself after the race, but I thought number 7, Lahaina Flavor at 10-1 had a huge shot.
I have as an A2.
Lahaina Favorite, what'd you say?
I have as an A2.
Oh, you do? Okay. Yeah. So I'm like thinking to myself, crazy. Drayden Van Dyke has got 1 win, all me. Paddy Gallagher, he's, ready to have some duck l'orange after the meet ends. He hasn't won anything. So that's very, very problematic. But I thought this guy's debut was pretty solid. He was off the pace. He was off a fair pace, wasn't super fast, wasn't super slow, but he came home respectably in a 9 furlong affair. He should be super fit off that, ready for a move forward while cutting back. He's also a 4-year-old against a bunch of 3-year-olds. And we talk about this all the time. Doesn't matter so much this late in the year, but it's still something I look at, especially if I think the 3-year-olds are going to be overbet. I thought this horse was very, very interesting. The only thing that really worries me are the connections. And then number 8, Uncle Oscar. I know he was 15-1 last time. When I had my Saturday seminar, my guest, Joe Lademan, I gave out that horse as one of his sneaky plays, and the horse ran huge, ran a really, really good second, lost to the favorite, so no shame there. Now makes the 3rd start of the form cycle, cuts back from 9 furlongs as well. I really like that move, cutting back to a mile. But what's most telling is that Mike Smith takes over for an apprentice who wasn't really that good on turf all summer long. So that cannot be overlooked. And then I'm actually using 3 A's here. I'm going to use number 6 Quintessence, 8-1. I hated this horse last time at 4-1. Didn't use for a penny. It was a turf sprint off a long layoff. I thought for all the world that was a prep race for a route race in the next start. Seems that I was right. He was not very good in that 5 furlong turf sprint. I didn't expect him to be. Here he is coming back. He's a much better 2-turn horse, second off the bench. So I expect him to outrun his odds today. But is this super duper competitive race to end the sequence?
You listed 3. I've got all 3 of those. Uncle Oscar for Hoffman's, who, as we know, knows how to train a horse, comes out of that same Lahaina Favor race or flavor. And I felt like both of them just made all the sense in the world. And you're going to get compensated for your lower profile connections. Quintessence, I thought, is going to get just a beautiful trip in here potentially as not on the lead, but will be in front at the pace call. Like will take over from speed that I don't like and be able to just get an absolutely great run in here. Now, I had a really goofy one that I wanted to ask you about. This is a horse somebody picked on one of the shows at some point. and I was thinking it might be you, but the fact that you didn't come back here makes me think maybe it wasn't you. What about another horse to get a perfect trip potentially in Collect This Money? I think the 4 is the Bye Bye Ray, who I don't really like at all, is going to be a clear leader. And I'm hoping runners like the 11 and the 6 might be able to just set up camp off this one. The angle with Collect This Money is pedigree. This is a good going longer. This is a good route grass pedigree. Also, you could make the case that race was more of a prep. And as I say on the shows all the time, I always love when they get on the new surface and run a higher figure. That often portends for further improvement. And I mean, this horse is going to be all of 20-1. Can you see it if you sprint? Squint.
Yeah, I think this horse came up on another show that we might have done together, and we talked about it because if you look at Belterra, Anamia wanted to get this horse on turf twice, and it was washed off both times. She's a good horsewoman. She is a turf horse. O'Neill gets the horse here in Southern California, and the first thing he does is he puts the horse on turf. So, absolutely makes sense. I was just worried about the trip this horse was going to get.
Post-wise.
Coming out from the sprint races, probably going to be forwardly placed, probably end up stalking in that 3 position, which is great in dirt races, but not my favorite trip in turf races. So
I was hoping could drop in, but you may be right.
Yeah, I don't know if that's something Pereira will do from out here. I think instead he'll be more aggressive and put this horse in the race. And with other speed inside him and other stretch out sprinters, I was kind of thinking he'd be stalking. But you know what? If he does find the rail, then, why not? Like you said, it's 2 turns on the turf is what this horse probably wants to do. You can just look at that last race as a prep race for this. Really had no chance, breaking all the way outside in a 5 furlong turf sprint, 4 deep. You can't win with that trip in a turf sprint. So the horse was right there, ran half a race until he got tired. So I'm not going to talk you off a 20-1 shot, Pete, but it wasn't one that I was going to use.
Throw in there. I like your other 3 all better, but just one I wanted to mention. That phone call that interrupted us means the Brits are ready for me for the Saturday TV shift. So we got to cut it short here, Frank, but always a pleasure. Love working with you. Love working with our friends at Del Mar all summer. Get involved in this mandatory payout pick 6 on closing day. Hopefully nobody hits it today, and we got a little bit added to the pot. That'll be a lot of fun. This show's been a production of In the Money Media. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatal. May you win all your photos.